Good afternoon, everybody. We're about to get started. This is our monthly new partner introduction. So this is a high-level overview we've put together of all of the main channel products that we offer here at Zyxel. There's a lot of slides, so I'm going to be going through them rather quickly. And for a lot of these topics, we're just hitting them at the surface level. If you're interested in learning more about something you see in today's presentation, reach out to your salesperson. They'll be able to direct you maybe to more in-depth presentations that we've done in the past on those topics you're interested in, and they can provide you links to recorded webinars there, or they may be able to schedule a live webinar with you and your team, either with our salesperson, our product manager, or with our sales engineer, depending on what the topic is that you're interested in and the level of depth you're looking for. As we go through today, go ahead and send in questions using the question and answer interface here in Zoom. I will try to answer most questions as we go through, but depending on what the topic is, I may choose to push it back to the end of the presentation before I answer it. And again, so the idea behind this presentation is something we do at the beginning of every month, the first Tuesday of every month. And that is we just provide this high-level overview for those of you that are new to Zyxel. One thing we've learned by going out in the field, hosting trade shows, visiting customers is oftentimes our partners may be selling one or two specific products that they're familiar with and aren't aware that we've got other types of products. So that's what this is behind the idea behind this. Is just to give you sort of a high level of overview of everything, to give you an idea of what other Zyxel products are available for you. So we'll start with just a little bit of background on who Zyxel is. So Zyxel's been making computer networking equipment now for over 30 years. We got started all the way back in 1989. Our headquarters is based out of Hsinchu, Taiwan, and our US headquarters is based out of Anaheim, California. So the Anaheim headquarters handles our warehouse, it is our marketing team, it is our sales team, it is our tech support team. Um, so when you call in to get support from Zyxel, you are talking to a Zyxel employee here in California, except for maybe some of you on the East Coast. If you're on the East Coast and you're calling in extra early, you may be routed to our German-based tech support call center for those early morning calls. But otherwise, everything's handled here out of the Zyxel office. We aren't over or outsourcing the support to third-party companies or anything like that. But we've deployed over 100 million devices at our excuse me, my throat's giving me some issues today. Over 100 million devices have been deployed by Zyxel. We serve 150 different global markets. You are here because you probably recently signed up for our partner program, or maybe you signed up a long time ago and you're just looking for a refresher for yourself or maybe a new employee. So just a reminder here, we do have our sales team available for you guys. We do offer deal registration, which gives you an extra discount on any deals that you may win that you've registered, and also prevents us from offering those sort of deals and discounts to your competitors. So basically the first one to register the deal gets the best discounts on those. Most of our business class products offer a lifetime warranty, and you have access both to our priority access to our tech support team and access to our sales engineer. When it comes to the sales team, we've broken up the country into 3 regions. You can see there on the map. On the West Coast, you're handled by Andy. Central area there is handled by Jacob, and everything else is handled by David. So depending on what state you are, that's who your sales rep is. I encourage you to take advantage of your sales reps. If you have questions on products, if you need help speccing out or finding a solution to a specific problem you've got, if distribution is telling you a product isn't available that should be available, or is telling you that you can't drop ship an item that needs to be drop shipped, reach out to our sales team. They're there to help you. They can help try to push things behind the scenes here when it comes to distribution and help you find solutions to the problems that you're experiencing. So on the channel side of things, which is what we're going to be talking about today, we've broken the products into some main categories here: security appliances, Wi-Fi, switches, network management. And we do also offer here in North America a very small selection of gateway and access solutions, specifically consumer type routers and power line equipment. We will not be talking about those today, but we'll talk a little bit about everything else. So we're going to get started talking a little bit about Nebula. And the reason we're starting here is Nebula is a product that touches all of our main product categories. So Nebula is our sort of free cloud hosted network management solution. So very similar to something that you might be familiar with, like Cisco's Meraki, but aimed more at the smaller MSP, the SMB business space, and something that is provided for free. So we'll just do a few slides on this. If you're interested in learning more about Nebula, I do a monthly Nebula webinar. I believe Marcus also, for those of you looking for more of a sort of tech-oriented, detailed best practices type presentation, Marcus puts those on occasionally as well. So with Nebula, you can get up and running in just a few minutes. The Nebula agent's built into the hardware. You simply plug the hardware in, it gets power, it boots up, it gets an IP address, it reaches out to the internet, and that's all you need to do. You don't need to log into the unit and tell it it's going to be cloud managed. You don't need to point it to a server. And we've got a number of wizards and tools in the Nebula interface designed to get you up and going really quick. So one of the cool things about Nebula is you can start setting up your customer's network before you've even gotten the hardware on hand. Um, a number of the settings and network settings that you might have want to configure, you can start doing those today before you've even purchased your hardware. You can simply go into the Nebula interface, start creating and working on your customer's network. Once you do receive the hardware, all you need to do is scan the QR code on the outside of the box, assign it to your customer and their network, and then ship it off. No additional configuration generally needs to be done on the hardware itself. Now, having said that, that applies to switches and access points. Security appliances, there's a couple extra steps in there just for security reasons because of how important that security gateway is. It's controlling access from the public internet into your local WAN. Whoops. So in order to use Nebula, you just need to buy Nebula compatible equipment. Um, there's no additional hardware or software you need. There's no cloud keys. There's no local controllers. There's no virtual machines that need to be set up or software that needs to be run. Everything is done in the cloud through a web interface. So anywhere you've got access to an internet connection and a web browser, you have access to your customers and their networks. All configuration and firmware updates are done over the air. So again, you don't log into the individual device to configure them. You simply go to the cloud, make your configuration changes there, and they will be pushed out to the devices. Same goes for firmware updates. You can schedule and set up firmware updates and do that all through the cloud. No reason to go on site, no reason to directly access anybody's hardware. So Nebula was designed from the ground up to help you manage multiple customers and multiple networks for those customers. The interface has been designed to make it really quick to jump between customers or jump between your customers' networks, and designed to give you a customizable view of what's going on in your customers' networks. You can control which widgets are shown to you when you log in, and there's a number of different reports and things like that that you can look at. So Nebula itself is free. All the main functionality is available for free. There is no limit to the number of devices you can manage with the free version of Nebula. There is no limitation on the number of customers you can manage with the free version of Nebula. Now, we do offer additional licenses that do unlock some additional features for a fee, but the core version is always going to be free there for you. So if you're looking for Nebula, back in the days when we first started selling Nebula equipment, we copied the Cisco Meraki model, where there was one set of hardware that you manage the traditional way, directly via a web GUI built into the device, or a command line interface, or SNMP, and then another line that was designed to be managed in the cloud. We have gotten away from that, and with the exception of a few legacy devices, everything now is what we call Nebula Flex. So you will normally see this on the data sheet or maybe on the price list when you're looking at a product. So if you see a device labeled Nebula Flex, that tells you you have the flexibility to either use it as your traditional standalone management platform or to be able to manage it in the cloud. Now, these are two different modes. Sometimes some of the features can be a little bit different. So when you switch between modes, you do have to configure them independently. The configurations don't carry over between the modes if you're switching the device from one to the other. And you can always switch a device to Nebula, and you can always then switch it back to standalone mode. So you've got the flexibility there. If you're moving equipment from customer to customer, or your customer's needs changed, you can simply, flip a switch essentially in the cloud and bring it online in the cloud, or convert it back over to standalone. You will see some products called Nebula Flex Pro. For most products, what Nebula Flex Pro means is, in addition to the dual modes, standalone or cloud, these devices also come bundled with 1 year of Nebula Pro. So Nebula Pro is one of the optional licenses that we offer. So if you're buying a device that's Nebula Flex Pro, you will get a 1 year license to unlock some of those additional features, most of which are aimed at the MSP space. They give you access to like more log information stored in the cloud, um, an audit log tracks all the configuration changes that have been made, gives you some tools for being able to copy settings between different sites, et cetera, things like that. In the case of wireless access points, Nebula Flex Pro products have a third mode that they can use, which is a local controller. So that controller software is built into most of our security gateways. So most of our security gateways, in addition to being a security gateway, can also be a local wireless LAN controller. So if you're looking to be able to manage access points using a local controller, you want a Nebula Flex Pro product. So now we'll start talking about our security products. This is probably the type of product we're most well known for. So we have now been certified for over 20 years by ICSA Labs. So ICSA Labs is an independent testing company, and one of the things that they test and certify is firewall gateways. So we've been certified by them now for over 20 years. Now, when it comes to unified threat management, or UTM, these are the gateway hosted security services. Rather than try to do it all in-house like most of our competitors, we instead partner with third-party companies to provide those signatures and those updates for our equipment. So depending on which products you're using, we partner with guys like McAfee, Lastline, WebRoot, Trend Micro, Bitdefender to provide those security and UTM services for you. So we'll just go through here a bunch of the features you will find on most of our security appliances. It's all standard stuff. So link aggregation groups, the ability to combine different ports together to create a higher capacity. High availability pro. So if your gateway crashes or goes down for some reason, there's a second one that can automatically take over and keep your network up and running. SSL packet inspection, the ability to enforce policy rules, content filtering, antivirus on traffic passing through the gateway that is SSL encrypted. So that's something we can do with most of our gateways. We can integrate with your Radius or Active Directory servers to be able to provide user authentication and to be able to tailor policy rules for the individual user. We have VPN high availability. So if a VPN connection gets severed, another one can take over. The ability to load balance. Um, we have what's called a virtual tunnel interface to allow you to trunk different VPNs together. We have our lightweight SSL VPN client for Windows and I believe Macintosh. Provides an easy way to allow your users to connect back to the corporate network. And again, I apologize here. My throat is going out on me really bad. We support L2TP over IPsec. We have an easy VPN wizard that makes it really easy to set up site-to-site VPNs. And on the UTM side of things, we offer things like antivirus, content filtering, Geo Enforcer. We have our layer 7 application intelligence, which is pretty cool. It allows you to set up policy routes based on individual applications and oftentimes features within those applications. So you can do things like blocking certain aspects of certain software, or you can create your own traffic shaping rules for individual applications. So you can set up a rule, for instance, for like, say, I think, what is it? Microsoft Messenger can set up, traffic shaping rules for live video streams, things like that. We have the ability on our ATP series to do sandboxing with machine learning to be able to recognize zero-day threats. We offer intrusion detection and prevention, etc. So as mentioned a little bit earlier here, our security gateways also offer the ability to be a wireless LAN controller to manage our wireless access points. We also have the ability to use those gateways as a hotspot gateway, providing captive portal billing and things like that. So if you're looking to provide guest access, whether it's at like a coffee shop or it's at a small hotel, we have the ability to do that with our gateways. So that way you can have a single box providing firewall, UTM services, wireless LAN controller, and hotspot. In addition to all of that, we also have the ability to create a virtual private cloud. We are certified by both Amazon and Microsoft to be able to create this VPN tunnel basically between the cloud and your gateway. So that way you can host your applications in the Amazon or Microsoft clouds and have them be accessible to your local users as if they were hosted locally on your local network. So when we look at the products, we've kind of broken them down into three different series here, um, calling them here on this slide here, simplicity, flexibility, and ultimate. So on the simple side of things is our VPN series. So these are going to be our security appliances that start with the letters VPN. And as the name hints at here, they're really focused on being a firewall and a VPN aggregator. That's their primary purpose. They do have optional content filtering and hotspot management, but they don't provide the UTM services. So if you're looking for something that has UTM services, our main product line here is the USG Flex series. So these products provide firewall, VPN aggregation, but these also do provide the core UTM functionality here for you. Things like gateway hosted antivirus, malware blockers, intrusion detection and prevention, etc. So the USG Flex series are generally sold in two forms. One version, which out of the box is just a firewall security gateway, and then you can add additional UTM services via license. And then we also sell them as a bundle where out of the box, it will include 1 year of UTM services. They will also include, if you're buying the bundled version, 1 year of Nebula Pro Pack when you buy the device. And then we have our ATP series, the Advanced Threat Management. These products here unlock for you the ability to do sandboxing, DNS reputation filter, and IP reputation filters. Now, these features are coming to USG Flex in the future via a optional license that you can then unlock to add these. But if you want this out of the gate, ATP series is the way to go. Our VPN series products also do have the ability to be converted into an SD-WAN appliance. So that's software-defined WAN. And basically what it's doing is it's taking advantage of the fact that you control the WAN connection at multiple locations that you want to link together and allows us to do some things that can't normally be done using standard IP protocols. In standard VPN implementations. The primary means for this is to be an alternative for businesses that have multiple locations that they're trying to link together. Historically, the way you would do this is you would go to a large nationwide ISP and you would pay them for a private lines connecting those locations together. VPNs generally are not fast enough or consistent enough when it comes to things like jitter and latency to be an alternative. So with SD-WAN, we allow you to get away from those private MPLS dedicated paid services and use a VPN type service as a replacement without the drawbacks of a typical VPN connection. So basically, because we control the VPN and we control the WAN settings on all of the different locations, we have the ability to optimize TCP acceleration. We can optimize for latency to sort of solve latency issues. We can optimize to solve for packet loss issues and do it much more efficiently than your traditional industry standard TCP IP and VPN protocols would generally handle it. So here's an example here. We're connecting our German office with our office here in Taiwan. There's a 290 millisecond ping between the two locations. There is 0.3% packet loss and just 3 milliseconds of jitter. So using a standard VPN connection and an FTP download, trying to transfer a 1.9 gig file, it takes 2 hours and 40 minutes to do it over that VPN connection. If we convert that VPN into an SD-WAN type VPN connection, it takes just 10 minutes to transfer the same file. So on the ultimate side of things here, this is going to be talking a little bit here about our ATP series. So again, this provides sandboxing functionality. So the way a traditional, what do you want to call here? Sorry, UTM service works is basically you periodically get signatures that tell you how to identify threats to your network, as well as telling you which traffic is perfectly safe. Unfortunately, there is a delay between when these signatures are created, when, say, a new threat is discovered, signatures are created, and then those signatures are downloaded onto your appliance. So that leaves an open hole in the middle of your hole in your security there, what we would call traditionally as zero-day exploits. Exploits that have just come out onto the market and have not yet been classified and identified. So sandboxing provides us a solution to solve that issue. And so what happens is it works similar to a standard UTM where you've got your signatures to help you recognize things. But if you get approached with your gateway sees traffic that doesn't match any signatures, we have the ability here to capture that data and upload it into the cloud for analysis using artificial intelligence or machine learning, whatever term you want to use for it. Basically, so it can find these new threats that are out there on the network, upload them to the cloud, figure out if they're good or not, and then we can either block them and tell your gateway to block them because they're a threat, or we can say, no, those are okay, go ahead and let it through. So this type of cloud-based machine learning approach to security is being powered by Last Line, or who we've partnered with. They're one of the bigger names in the industry when it comes to this. And the nice thing about this is because this is all linked together in the cloud, is your device doesn't necessarily have to see this new threat. It just needs to be a Zyxel ATP device sees this threat, sandboxes that data that's coming in, uploads it to the cloud. And then once the cloud sees and figures out if it's good traffic or bad traffic, it can then update basically everybody's signatures instantly. So all it takes is one Zyxel user to see a new type of threat, and then all Zyxel ATP gateways will be able to recognize that threat. Another tool we have for you here is a product called SecuReporter. So SecuReporter is a cloud-hosted solution that we have for you that basically creates reports telling you what's going on your customers' networks. So one of the challenges that a lot of our partners have when it comes to UTM services is those UTM services have to be renewed every year or maybe every 3 years, depending on what sort of contract you've got with your customer. And one of the challenges there is trying to convince them, hey, it's been a year, it's been 3 years, it's time for you to renew these additional services that are hosted on the gateway. And the reason it's hard is because the end user doesn't know what you've protected them from. So SecuReporter provides a great tool so you can provide reports for your customers so you can show them what those UTM services on their firewall gateway have been up to and what sort of protection they have offered so they can see the value of keeping and renewing those UTM services. Basically, they take log data, application data, security data, run analytics on it, and generate visual reports for you, which show things like, who's been going out to bad websites, what sort of things have people been going to, what sort of threats have we seen, when did this happen, and basically generate reports that tell you this. Now, these reports are customizable, including the ability for you to go ahead and add your logo and contact information on them. So you can have these automatically sent once a month or once a quarter to your customers so they can see what's been going on and how you and your Zyxel firewall gateways have been protecting them. So that's going to be it as far as security goes. When I'll talk about switches. So switches is probably one of the most confusing areas we have for us because there's just so many different versions that we have. So I want to try to simplify at least some of this for you and give you some general rules. So when you're looking at that price list file we send out and you see that there's a million different switches, you'll be able to figure out what those switches do just sort of by looking at the model names for them. So to begin with, all of our switches start with 2 or 3 letters, and those letters tell you what sort of switch they are. ES tells you it's a fast Ethernet switch. GS tells you that all ports on that switch are 1 gig ports. XS tells you that all ports on that switch are 10 gig ports. And then XGS is telling you that you've got a mix of 1 gig ports and multi-gig ports. They may be 10 gig, they may be 5 gig, they may be 2.5, but you've got a mix. You've got some multi-gig ports, you've got some 1 gig ports. And then there's the MGS series, which we don't really offer here in North America. Those are our metro switches that are aimed really at large ISPs. And then you'll see when looking at the switches that often there will be a letter at the end of the model name. So if it says P, it tells you it's an 802.3 AF PoE power. If you see HP, it's telling you it's either high power, 30 watt, or extra high power, 60 watt PoE. So 802.3 AT or 802.3 BT. And then if you see an F at the end, it's telling you that that switch only has fiber ports. So if you're looking for, a 10 gig switch that has a bunch of fiber ports on it, you'll know to be looking at our XS series switches and then look for an F at the end. So another area on our switches which causes some confusion sometimes is oftentimes our uplink ports are what we call combo ports. So you have, in this example here, we've got 4 physical interfaces, 2 copper and 2 fiber. But actually this is not 4 separate ports. This is 2 ports, but each port has 2 different interfaces. So one port can use copper or fiber, the other port can use copper or fiber. So 2 to 4 physical ports, 2 actual ports that you can use there. That's just to give you the flexibility on those uplink ports, whether they're copper or fiber, and not lock you into one or the other. And then just as a reminder, if you have SFP ports support a max speed of 1 gigabit. If the switch has SFP plus ports, it can support SFP modules up to 10 gigabits. So most of our switches, if you're using Nebula, can virtually stack, but only a few of our switches can actually truly hardware stack. And so for those ports that do that, we do have dedicated stacking ports on them. And then we do sell what's called a direct attach cable, which is a special high-speed short fiber cable designed to link those two switches together. And give me just a sec, I'll be right back. All right, I'm back. Sorry about the brief pause there. So when it comes to power over Ethernet, right, there's 3 different types of PoE. There is the standard PoE, which is 15.4 watts, PoE plus or 802.3 AT, which is 30 watts, and then PoE plus plus, which is 60 watts of power, also known as 802.3 BT. So on our switches, and shoot, I may have a slide coming up on this, but our switches, most of our switches have the ability to do what's called intelligent PoE management. In general, the way the PoE official standard works is a device negotiates with the switch and gives it a class identifier. And that class identifier basically tells the switch to reserve a certain amount of power for each connected device. The downside of that is the classes are really spaced apart really far. So if you are I believe it's a class 3 device, a class 4 device, it will reserve 40 or 30 watts of power. If you're a class 3 device, it's 15.4 watts. So just one class difference doubles the amount of power that your switch is reserving for the product, even though in reality out there, a lot of products are just barely over the difference between one class to another. So our PoE management has the ability to sit there and see what the power draw is from connected devices, and then free up additional PoE budget to be able to power additional devices. So you can fit more devices on the same PoE power budget. So we've tried to sort of group our switches together into some different categories for you. Effortless, these are going to be our desktop plug and play unmanaged switches. So those are going to be 100 series, 1000 series, 1100 series, and 1300 series switches. So again, if you're looking at those model numbers, those first 2 or 3 digits are going to tell you sort of what type of switch it is. We have the Simplicity series. So these are our low-end web managed switches. So these will provide a web interface for you to manage them and provide some basic core features such as VLAN configuration, maybe some port aggregation, things like that. And then from there, we have our flexible series. So these switches here are going to be manageable with the Nebula Cloud, should you choose to go that route. These ones also will have a much more in-depth layer 2 feature set than the 1200 and the 1900 series. So these would be our 1350s, the 1920s, and 1930s. And then at the high end here for our layer 2 plus, or depending on which competitor you're coming from, layer 3 light switches. So those will be the 2210, 2220s, 3700, 3800, 4600 series. So if you're looking to manage your switches in Nebula, these are the models you want here: 1350 series, 1920, 1930 series, or the 2220s and 3800 series. So we'll go really quickly through these. This is just trying to show you the variety of switches that are available here. So this is our 1200 series of switches. So again, web management, very limited feature set, just the sort of core managed features that you may want. We've got 5-port, 8-port, PoE, non-PoE, as well as some multi-gig ports, some switches here that have multi-gig uplinks on them. The 1900 series is going to give you some more features than what the 1200 series would get you. And these are going to be pretty much exclusively going to be rack mount type switches. Then jumping up from there is our 1920 V2 series. So these are going to be kind of your full featured layer 2 web managed or cloud managed switch. 1930 series switches are going to give you multi-gig, so very similar to the 1920s, but add generally multi-gig uplink ports to them. Or they can be all multi-gig ports if they start with the XS identifier there. And then probably our best-selling switches right here, the GS 2220 series. These are cloud managed if you want them, but these are our true high-powered layer 2 plus or layer 3 light managed switches. So these have cloud management, web interface, command line interface, etc. Okay, so I got ahead of myself, I guess, in the PoE ports. My bad. So this is just talking about what I mentioned before about the intelligent PoE management. So here's some examples here of how it can affect you. So in this example here, we are using an IP phone. This IP phone is a class 3 device. So it will tell the switch it needs 15.4 watts of power. But in reality, it's only using 9 watts of power. So we're able to see that, and we're able to then free up the additional 6 watts of power for other devices. So you can see here, if we plugged in 24 of these phones using the industry standard way of doing PoE, it would require a switch with a power budget of 370 watts. However, with our intelligent mode, you only need a switch with a budget of 216 watts to power up 24 of these IP phones. Similar story here on an IP pan tilt zoom camera. It identifies itself as a class 4 device, which would reserve 30 watts of power per device. But in reality, it only needs 16 watts of power. So to power up 20 of these, using the industry standard, we would need a switch with 600 watts of PoE power. But using our intelligent mode here, we only actually need a switch with 320 watts to be able to power up all 20 of those cameras. We also have an interesting series of switches here, which is our 1350 series of switches. Now, these are switches that were designed specifically for use in the IP surveillance to be able to power up basically IP cameras for surveillance networks. However, they've got some cool features that may be something you can use in other applications besides that. So we'll go through those here just really briefly. So the first one is they can provide a data connection and PoE power for 250 meters, where the standard switch is 100 meters. So if you've got something that requires really long cable runs, this switch can do that. It doesn't require anything special on the connected device. It's all done on the switch side of things. Now, the trade-off for this mode is it limits maximum data speed to 10 megabits per second. But for a lot of applications, that's going to be all you need. Another thing it does is it provides continuous PoE. So whenever the device needs to be rebooted or there's a crash or a configuration change, it continues to provide power even if the device is rebooting and doing that. So the connected device doesn't itself have to reboot just because your switch is rebooting. We also have a mode in here where we can show you information on the connected device itself, what speed the connection is, what the current PoE draw is, what the current IP address is of that device. And we have the ability to automatically recover devices. So for cameras, we use LLDP, but for non-camera devices, you can use ping and set this up to periodically ping the connected device. And if the device starts to fail, doesn't respond to pings, you can automatically reboot that device by power cycling it through the PoE switch. And that can be done automatically for you. And we have a number of settings here. How often do you want to ping the device? How many pings must fail before you try to reboot the device? And then basically saying how long after you've rebooted the device before you resume things, right? Because obviously if you start pinging it too soon, after you power cycle it, it may not be fully powered up and may not yet be responding to ping. So all of those settings are there for you, so you can tweak it how you need it. They're also a little bit heavier duty when it comes to things like surge protection. So in addition to the switches themselves, we do sell some of the accessories for switches. We sell those SFP and SFP plus modules for those of you guys doing the high-speed fiber. And of course, we also sell those direct attached cables if you're doing stacking. So now we'll go ahead and move on here to our wireless products. So when it comes to our business class products in general here, they are going to be products that that have 3 or 4 digits in the name. So if you see something like NWA 50AX, that is not a business class product. And we know that because it's only got 2 digits, right? 50 in the name. Whereas something like NWA 110AX, we know that's a business class product because it's got 3 digits, 110 in its model name. Our business access points can start with the letters NWA, WAC, WAX. In general, NWAs are the lower end, the WAX and WACs are the higher end access points. On the low end side of things here, on those 1 and 2 series products, those are all Nebula Flex, and the 5 and 6 series products are Nebula Flex Pro. So regardless of which level of switch you're looking at, whether we are talking about an $89, excuse me, not switch access point, an $89 access point or a $600 access point, we have the same design and build philosophy, and that's why even our cheap sub-$100 access points come with a lifetime warranty. So some of the things we do that is different from our competitors, and this is something that we used to do at trade shows. We used to bring our APs, Ruckus APs, Cisco APs, Ubiquiti APs, open them up and have them on display there so you could see these differences yourselves. But one of the things we do differently here is we've designed them to be able to last a long time. So when you've got solid state components like this, one of the leading causes of failure is heat fatigue over time. So we've made sure to help pull heat off of the board and vent it out of the back of the AP. And we do that by having a large metal shield that goes behind the PCBA and pulls the heat off the board and then vents it out of holes. So we have that to try to help extend the life. The other major cause of failure on this type of solid state device is capacitor failure. So we do not use any electrolytic capacitors on our devices. We only use solid state capacitors. Those generally last a significantly longer time. For those who don't know, electrolytic capacitors are the little ones that are filled up with sort of like an electrolyte solution. So they can dry out, they can leak, they can boil over. So we do not use those in any of them. And that's why we can offer the lifetime warranty. The other thing you will see with most of our APs is you will see a lot more shielding on the chips on the board than you would see on our competitors' products. And the reason for that is in addition to trying to help solve EMI issues with these chips, we're also trying to protect you from external interference. In particular, 4G and 5G signals can cause interference with Wi-Fi because they are using neighboring frequencies. And when you have a really strong 4G or 5G signal, they can interrupt. So you will often see those in larger office buildings where the that LTE or mobile carrier signal doesn't penetrate very far into the building. So the way these guys get around that is they use what are called DAS solutions or DAS solutions to help bring in that cellular signal from outside and broadcast it inside the building. This broadcast can be very strong and it can cause interference with Wi-Fi. So this extra shielding we have helps protect you from that. And then lastly, unlike a lot of our competition, we do not mount our antennas directly to the same PCBA as the chips. We have them on their own board, and then we have a sort of separation device here to help separate the antennas from the board. So it doesn't make a lot of difference when it comes to a strong signal, but when we're talking about those marginal connections, it can make a huge difference in the quality of the connection. We also offer some technologies here on our access points that you won't find in most of our competition. The first one is called dual optimized antennas. Now, your traditional access point has one antenna configuration and it's designed to be mounted on the ceiling above the area to be covered. So when you mount that access point, you can't mount it on the ceiling for whatever reason, you end up having to mount it on a wall, is the antenna pattern is wrong for providing coverage from the wall. It sends most of the signal up into the floor, down into the ceiling. So what we offer is we offer a number of APs with this dual optimized antenna, where we've got two different antenna patterns, one optimized for ceiling mount, one optimized for wall mount. And you can choose which one to use on a per AP basis. In addition to that, we also have our smart antenna. So very similar to Ruckus, if you're familiar with Ruckus, they're pretty much the only other guys that push smart antenna. Just to hit here, smart antenna is not beamforming. That is some confusion just due to the marketing of beamforming with 11 AC wave 2. So completely different thing than beamforming. So the main thing with smart antenna is it's been designed to maximize basically the quality of experience of your wireless users. And specifically, what we've optimized our antenna to be able to do is to deal with co-channel interference. So basically, in general, when it comes to using radio waves to talk and transmit data, is devices have to take turns. They don't get to each broadcast at the same time. If you've ever used walkie-talkies, the analog walkie-talkies, you've heard two people trying to talk at the same time, you know, it makes a horrible, horrible noise. Or maybe you've gone on a road trip and you've gotten into that situation where you're picking up two different radio stations on the same channel and it just sounds horrible. That's the same sort of thing that happens with Wi-Fi when you've got multiple Wi-Fi devices trying to broadcast on the same channel at the same time. So the way our smart antenna works, and I'm sort of jumping through these a little bit faster, is we've designed our smart antenna algorithm to be able to try to avoid sources of interference, whether they are other devices using Wi-Fi, whether they are industrial equipment putting out radiation, whatever, or interference. So with smart antenna, we have the ability to go through hundreds of different antenna patterns in almost real time and always be able to choose the antenna pattern, which focuses the signal in the direction of the client we are talking to, while also making sure that we are avoiding or ignoring sources of interference at the AP level. So we're able to hear that client when it sends its data back. And this doesn't require anything special on the client side. It works with any client device. And unlike beamforming, it works with mobile devices, not just those that are stationary. So here's some examples. On paper, the Zyxel WAX650S and the Aruba AP515 are very similar. Both are Wi-Fi 6 for spatial stream devices. Roughly same output power. We got a little bit more output power than them. But the main difference is smart antenna versus no smart antenna. And as you can see, we're in green, they're in blue. Significant differences in performance, particularly here at the end, at the distant locations here where the signal is really not getting very far. You can see you're going from 15 megabits speed on the Aruba to over 400 megabits per second using the smart antenna technology. That affects both transmit and the receive side of things. Now, a few years ago, a university in Italy decided to test claims that companies like us and Ruckus were making in terms of smart antenna. Their networking group got together, bought some Cisco, bought some HP, bought some Zyxel, bought some Ruckus, and put them through a bunch of tests. You can find the entire white paper here and see all the tests they did, all of their test methodology. But the short version of it is that smart antenna outperforms non-smart antenna access points significantly in the real world. In a clean room lab environment, not much difference, but in the real world where you're dealing with all sorts of different building materials and reflections and other sources of RF interference, smart antenna makes a huge difference. So I do want to talk briefly here about Wi-Fi 6, since this is still for a lot of you considered a new technology. Basically, Wi-Fi 6 was an attempt by the industry here to solve a lot of the issues that have been plaguing Wi-Fi since Wi-Fi first launched in the late 1990s. There haven't been any really significant changes to how Wi-Fi works since the late 90s until Wi-Fi 6 finally launched. So Wi-Fi 6 can provide, in theory, speeds up to almost 10 gigabits per second. It's designed for higher capacity. So this is both the number of clients that are on an access point, as well as the number of access points that may be in the same area. And it's also the first technology since 802.11n that also works on the 2.4 radio. So your 11AC products are still running 11n on that 2.4 radio. Now with Wi-Fi 6, you can have Wi-Fi 6 on both the 2.4 and the 5 radio. Although do keep an eye on that. Some of the Ubiquity products, for instance, that advertises Wi-Fi 6 only offer Wi-Fi 6 on the 5 radio. The 2.4 is still 11n technology. All of our business class APs, Wi-Fi 6 technology on both radios. So how does it do some of this stuff? It's got some new technologies here. We now have the ability to do 8 different spatial streams using a MU-MIMO setup. And unlike 11AC, we now can do MU-MIMO in both directions. So with 11AC Wave 2, you could transmit to multiple client devices at the same time from your access point, but the client devices had to take turns replying back to the access point. Well, now with Wi-Fi 6, well, you can now send data to multiple clients, and multiple clients can send data back to that access point. We've added OFDMA, which allows us to much more effectively carve up the available Wi-Fi spectrum in these multi-user environments. Much higher modulation, so we're cramming more data into the same amount of bandwidth. We have something called BSS coloring that allows us basically to identify on the packets who they're intended for, so they can be ignored by devices that don't need to pay attention to them, and targeted wake up time for those devices that are low power. We can do scheduling to tell them when it's going to be their turn to be able to broadcast. So in addition to direct management and cloud management of our APs, we do also offer the on-premise controller. Functionality is pretty much the same feature-wise, whether you're using it in the cloud or with the local area controller. The one only difference between the two modes at this point is rogue AP detection. If you want to provide rogue AP detection, you do need a local area controller. Otherwise, all the other features are largely the same between the two different modes. And this just shows you here the different models of security appliances we have, how many APs can be managed out of the box, and then with licenses, what's the maximum number of access points that can be managed. So you can see here, out of the box, even our little VPN 50 can manage 4 APs. And then most other devices manage 8 out of the box. And then you can upload more. So our VPN 1000, it can manage over 1,000 access points at once, and it can do that across multiple locations at once. Our USG Flex 700, it does 264, et cetera. So with that, guys, that is the end of today's presentation. I haven't gotten any questions. So if you have any, again, send them in using the question and answer interface. Some resources here for you. Most of our webinars are recorded and then uploaded to our YouTube page. There are multiple Zyxel YouTube pages because Zyxel is a multinational company. So the one that covers the presentations done here in North America is called Zyxel America channel. So generally within 1 or 2 days of the webinar, they will be uploaded to the cloud. So if you had to leave in the middle of a presentation or you weren't able to join a webinar you wanted to see, you can always log into our website and find, or our YouTube page and find them. We also have video case studies and some other little bits and stuff that may be of interest to you available on our YouTube page. You can connect with us on LinkedIn, where we are Zyxel US channel. And then lastly here, we do offer user forums. So these are a place where you can reach out and talk to other Zyxel users, other Zyxel installers. These forums are run by our headquarters. They are monitored by our R&D team and our product management team at our headquarters. So occasionally you will see them reply to questions you post on there, although it's primarily for user-to-user communication, but it is monitored. So if you have suggestions for new features, post them there. And if a lot of people start agreeing with you, like, yeah, that's a feature we really need, it will get their attention and help prioritize which new features we work on. Forums are also the first place where we post things like firmware updates, security notices, release notes, things like that. So it's a good tool to have, even if you aren't interested in talking to your fellow Zyxel users. So Wendy, hi Wendy at DNH, is asking to get a copy of this slide. We can provide it to you in PDF for you. Generally, if anyone wants a copy of a presentation, we can't provide the actual slides. We can provide a PDF. And generally what you want to do is you want to reach out to your salesperson. So for most of the people out there that are VARs, that would be Jacob, Andy, or David. Obviously, Wendy doesn't deal with those people. So Wendy, I will take care of this for you. But in general, reach out to your salespeople and they'll be able to hook you up with these things. Data sheets by product line. Okay, so let me rephrase it. Eric is asking, are the data sheets by product line? So we do have data sheets available. They are on our website. Just go to zyxel.com. They are there. You can either find the product itself and then go to the download section, or you can go to the download section and then search for the product. Either way. And data sheets may be by product or they may be by product line. It just depends on which specific products we are talking about. So I think, for instance, the GS 1200 switches are all feature-wise basically the same. So they are all on a single data sheet with just a comparison in the back showing, the differences. Whereas some of our other products, there may be enough differences between the products where even what seem like similar models each have their own dedicated data sheet. So it just really depends on the product, how similar the products are. And also things like timelines of releases and things like that. So both are out there for you on our website. So Henry is asking here, does Zyxel offer NFR devices? So yes, if you are a Zyxel partner, so that means you need to be a reseller of some sorts, whether you're a VAR, system integrator, MSP. You need to have joined our partner program, which is something you can do through our website. As long as you're one of our partners there, we can hook you up with NFR devices. Again, you will want to reach out to your salesperson, Jacob, Andy, or David, and let them know you're looking for an NFR device, which device it is, which distributor you'd like to buy that NFR device through, and they will set up the paperwork to make that happen for you so you can buy that product at a discount. I think the NFR price is 50% off MSRP. Maybe wrong on that, but I think that's what that is. Okay, and that seems to be all of the questions that we've gotten. So I'm going to go ahead and end today's webinar. Thank you, everybody who has turned out today to watch this. We do have webinars most Tuesdays and Thursdays. Tuesdays are generally a more technical presentation. Thursdays are generally more general presentations, although there are exceptions to that. I do presentations primarily about access points and Nebula Cloud Management. Tri does presentations primarily on our security products, as well as things like switches occasionally. And then Marcus is our sales engineer. He does a lot more in-depth presentations, best practices. How do I do this? How do I do that type of presentations? So be sure to check those out. And thank you for joining today, guys.